Okay, this is the game between Canal and Capablanca played in Budapest 1929. The opening is a Queen's Indian ECO code E16. The game started off by d4, knight f6, c4, e6. Now, white will play knight to f3, avoiding probably the Nimzo Indian, which is knight c3 and then bishop b4. And then the game continues b6, preparing to play the bishop to b7, g3, and now normally today black plays bishop to a6, where it attacks the c-pawn, forcing white to play b3, but back in 1929 and still today, black can play bishop to b7. So basically, white's going to get some more central control, and black really doesn't have any really weaknesses. So we'll see how play continues. White continued bishop to g2, preparing the castle, developing the bishop. And then black plays bishop to b4 check. Another common move is just to play the bishop to e7. White responds by playing bishop to d2, and then the bishops are exchanged off. The knight takes, and one could debate if the queen should have captured the bishop. And now both sides will castle, so black castles, white castles, and then black plays c5, striking at the center, the d pawn, and the pawn can't go forward because it would just be lost, and white could play e3 to support the pawn, but really white wants to get in the move e4. So instead, white decides to liquidate the pawn by playing d takes c5, and then black will play b takes c5. Now white plays queen to c2, developing the queen, and also, I say, looking at the square, keeping an eye on the square e4 here. Black plays knight to c6. Black basically is now eyeing these two squares, and really it's the square d4, which is black is playing to control here. So then white will play rook on f to d1, bringing the rook to a half open file. Now black plays queen to b6. Again, exerting some more control over the square d4, but also attacking along the b file. White will play a3 to prevent the knight from coming to b4, attacking the queen. Now black plays rook on a to b8. As we can see now, black has two heavy pieces lined along the b file. So if the bishop moves, then it's going to threaten to capture the b pawn. So white plays rook on a to b1. Too bad this rook is not here. It would maybe love to go to the c file or something like that, but here it's now tied down to some defense, so we already see that white's playing a little bit of defense and black's playing offense. Or we can start to see that white is responding to black's threats, so we can see who has the initiative is black. Now black will play rook on f to c8, bringing its rook to a more active file, knowing that the c file is usually an active file in the queen's pawn openings. It's definitely more effective than being back on the f file. And now white plays e4 with the intention of pushing to e5, evicting the knight. The only problem is that now it's passed up the opportunity, is that if it only played e3, it could have guarded this d4 square. So, and because black's just going to respond by playing e5, putting an end to the threat of white playing e5, and now this square d4 can't be protected by a pawn anymore, so this is now a real weakness in white's camp, and we'll see that black will try to take advantage of this. So now white plays queen to d3 with the idea of trying to bring the queen into d6, penetrating into the position. And black would love to play a move like knight to d4, but if it does it immediately, then white's just going to play snap the pawn off here, so that's not possible. So black plays d6, defending the pawn, and it's interesting to note that if white tried to play the move queen takes d6, black will just play the move rook to d8, winning the queen. The queen has then nowhere to run. It can't go back, and it can't go anywhere in black's camp, so that pawn is actually immune from capture. White will now play knight to f1 with the idea of then bringing the knight to here and then to here. But now black plays, so we'll sit the pawn or the knight on to d4. White's going to have to get rid of that knight. That knight just can't stay there. So white plays knight takes d4. Then the question is, which pawn should black capture with? Should it be the c pawn or the e pawn? When I looked at it, I thought black should have captured with the c pawn, because that way it would have a pass pawn, and then it could attack this c pawn here. But here's what happens: is that if c takes, then this is just a variation now. Then white's probably going to play b4. Black's probably going to play a5, and then probably knight to d2, take and take. And I don't know, starting to look, technically this pawn here is passed, but it looks sort of unclear to me. So what black actually had something in mind. So it actually captured with the e pawn, and then now white will continue with b4, which was sort of the idea in white's mind, is to attack this c pawn here by playing b4. And now what is black to do? Because here's what's white's threatening. Let's say just black made some move which doesn't matter, like h6. Then what will happen is that white will take on c5. The queen has to retake, and then now this cute little thing is that white will then play rook takes b7, and after rook takes b7, then white will play e5, attacking the rook and the knight. So that's the threat. So what can black do? Well, black plays something like queen to c7, then d takes c5, d takes c5, and f4, and white's probably going to have an okay game. Probably just like that one variation I showed with taking the c versus e pawn. So so what black decides is that it's going to give up material for positional advantage, and this is how the game continued. So black played queen takes c6, queen to c6, and then just like the other variations, white plays b takes c5, d takes c5, rook takes b7, queen takes b7, and e5, hitting both the bishop is hitting the queen, the pawn is hitting the knight. White's going to come off with a material advantage. So now black plays queen to b3. And now how does white continue? Well, actually, if white plays queen takes b3, then rook takes b3. White's going to take the material here, and then black's going to play rook takes a3. And actually material is even, and black has a passed pawn, so that isn't what black or white would want. So instead, white plays e takes f6, and I'm going to have to continue this game in the next video.